You're watching Open Agenda.
But that's what the charter says I have to do. And so I follow the charter, and that's what I've done this entire time, is follow this charter.
Well, that was our county executive, Julie Giordano, in her own words. We're going to get a chance to see just how true that is. In the studio with me is Joe Venosa, our executive producer. Hey, Joe.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Great, great. So, we wanted to kind of break down maybe the top 10 talking points of why Question A is so important and why people should consider voting for Question A.
And how it came about.
And how it came about, kind of like, a narrative in people's own words in real time, but broken down into segments. So that's what this show's about. What do you think?
Can't wait.
So I think we start from the beginning, which Julie herself speaks about in only a way that I think she can articulate about when she first got into office, and the county council president, John Cannon, had to explain to her that having some extra people in our staff that is not on the budget control document is a misappropriation of funds.
Correct.
So let's listen in.
You scheduled a meeting to deliver a letter to me calling me a potential criminal who may have misappropriated funds 3 weeks into office. Of course, it was proven wrong, and our county attorney said no. But that's how our professional relationship started.
I think I reluctantly have to respond to a comment that was made earlier that the executive had made the claim that I had called her a criminal when we'd only been in office for about a month or so. It's a bit of an exaggeration, if not actually a really false statement. But to give you some context, this background is context, so you recognize what the circumstances were here. I'd say within the first month of getting in office, we were all new, and the executive hired 2 members from her campaign to work in her office. Not a crime. The only problem is that the 2 positions were 2 positions that were not recognized in the position control document of Wicomico County. In other words, those jobs didn't exist in Wicomico County and were not funded in Wicomico County. Still, they were arbitrarily added to her staff. One was called a legislative assistant, the other one was called a public information officer. So you had 2 people who were being hired with taxpayer funding in 2 positions unilaterally created by the executive. Making matters worse in that regard is that the executive chose to pay these 2 individuals not from the county executive's budget. One was paid from the roads department, from the public works, and the other one was getting paid with a check through the finance department, not through the county executive's office. So you had a situation where you had 2 unauthorized individuals working in a non-existent position and being paid with money from 2 other county departments rather than through the executive's approved budget. So you don't need a master's degree to know that that's not right. And it is, as was claimed, a misappropriation of funds. And that's what it is. It's just a misappropriation of funds. And that's the initiative that I took on behalf of the county council. And that was the purpose of the letter that went out.
County vehicles shall be assigned to departments or agencies of the county government by the county executive as approved by the annual budget and appropriation ordinance. Except as otherwise prohibited by law, vehicles may be reassigned between departments or agencies, not employees. So if you want to assign a vehicle from Public Works to the Sheriff's Department, you got to tell the county council that you're going to do that. But
I just can't understand why the council feels that that's in their purview if I'm switching a vehicle.
Well, if you budget, I'm just
for budgetary.
I'm just going from the hip here. If we've authorized, let's say, $1 million to planning and zoning, and they take a vehicle and they send it over to Public Works, all of a sudden you have a major asset that's shifted. That's it. I mean, that's just, and honestly, I'm assuming that's what the attempt is, or the purpose of it is.
So this is
it's not a $5,000 car anymore. It's an $80,000 or a $50,000 truck. It's like John says, it's a major asset. And talking about why we should, we're the legislative body, so we do legislative matters. And when I don't know about other council members, are welcome to speak up, but when you spend time listening to people complain about this person taking their child to daycare in a county car, or this person going to the grocery store and loading their county car up with groceries, You know, that's not what taxpayers pay their taxes for. Taxpayers are looking at it and say, wait a minute, you know, I'm buying a car, I'm taking my child to daycare. Why should a county vehicle be used to take their child to daycare? And this hasn't just happened since you've been here, Julie.
Yeah, I
It's
understand.
been going on for years,
I understand.
okay? And
Also, though, I really wish that the first time we were hearing about this wasn't right now. I would have loved to have had a meeting with you or any of the council that was concerned about it, and we would have gone over what the steps are, where we are now.
this is how we do it.
This isn't a work session, right?
This is a work session.
Yeah, it's just a work
This
session.
is what it's about.
Yeah.
This is how we do it.
All right, Joe. So that wasn't about the confirmations or the lack thereof for Matt Leitzel or Heather Langford. It was actually Dan Cox and maybe another campaign friend or something. But then really right after that, we kind of go into this non-confirmation confirmation of Matt Leitzel and Heather Langford, which is actually still in the appeals
And
process.
it's in litigation, yeah.
Yeah. So let's take a look at that video.
Deputy administrator position. For months, we've heard both sides present their position on how this was handled, and everyone is entitled to their opinion if the proper procedures were followed. Perception. The citizens of this county voted for a charter amendment to have this position presented in a legislative meeting. The purpose was to allow the citizens to become aware of the person and respond back to their representatives if they had strong concerns about the person being presented for the position. One of my strongest concerns was this person did not live in the county and really didn't have a homegrown knowledge of the county. One of the concerns as a council was the process of secession if the need arises. Since the deputy did not live in the county, he would not be eligible to replace Mr. Luffman if the need arises.
Mr. Mitchell said that the closed session was requested of the council. So we held that. At no time has the county council or the president of the council ever gone to the executive or gone to Mr. Luffman and said, I know you've submitted this, but we're not going to put it on the table. We're not going to accept it. Never.
So the confirmation actually happened within the first 9 months of Julie's term. But shortly after that, just a little over a year ago, we found out about Safari at the Quarry. And not just that it was a surprise event hosted by a friend of Julie's, but also the shoddy MOU and the lack of revenue for the county taxpayers from it, correct?
Correct.
I think let's check out that video, just how everything unfolded there.
We came to the council, the former county executive, Mr. Culver, shook our hands in this very room and said, we understand what you're dealing with, we feel for you, we're going to do something about this problem. Can you imagine our shock and our disappointment when we find out somebody else comes along, pays no attention to the work we've done, cares not for the way our lives have been affected, and decides, oh, it's going to be a good idea to put the very thing back there that these people have been complaining about. I have to wonder, because Ms. Giordano is friends with Mr. Hoffman, and I feel for her because I wonder, maybe he didn't represent everything he needed to represent to her when he went to her, if he was the one that pitched her this idea. I don't know, because it's just impossible for me to believe that we are in this position now. It's irresponsible, it's unfair to us.
I'll say has to do with the MOU. Having been a health officer for many years, I've written dozens of MOUs. I've signed hundreds, thousands. When I first saw this MOU, I thought it was a rough draft. I won't say I thought it was a joke, but I thought it was a rough draft. When I realized it wasn't, I reviewed it and still amazed and contend that it's the most shabby piece of work I've ever seen in my life.
With all due respect to the Safari at the Quarry, I think the council would have wanted to see that agreement before they approved it, because with due respect, the agreement was terrible.
But your people have that authority on a public road as far as traffic.
Well, we would also be reaching out to the county sheriff's department to work with them.
So the sheriff has already been made aware of the event, and so he just said, let us know, and we'll make sure that we have staff out there.
The sheriff has said he'll have staff out.
Yeah. How long ago was that? That was like in our meeting with him in our office. So he's aware of the event, and so.
I can tell you, while I'm up here, I was never asked to support this event. because I don't support the event. I don't. I don't. And I was never asked my opinion about having this event. I'm saying this because I've been told that in comments made to this group that I supported this event. Is that true? Yes. Well, let me make one thing perfectly clear. Wow. I have never been involved in any discussion ever other than being told it was going to happen and we'll keep you posted.
That's all she does.
My opinion was never sought. I don't support it.
The last thing I'm going to say is, as the county executive, I want to personally apologize to Brad Hoffman and Livewire Media from Wacomico County.
I guess there's been one thing that I can agree with that the county executive said, and that is that I believe Mr. Hoffman is owed an apology by the county, but not by the council and not by the residents of Shadow Hill, but by the county executive who stands by what she believes. She believes that getting an assistant administrator in a closed work session equates to being in an open session for the citizens to have the opportunity to make comments about this person and that position. She believes that was right. She believes that signing a MOU for 364 days, knowing that it doesn't require the council's approval by one day, is the correct thing to do. She believes that she can find a way around everything just by tweaking this or tweaking that.
But I think a clarification is important. I received an email last night from a citizen, which was sent out by the executive. And the reason I think it's important for the public to hear this is to understand that if there are misconceptions out there, we shouldn't try to encourage that. We want to make sure that any exchange with the community, with the constituents, is valid and above board. The statement that was made, and I'll read it for you, some of the typos are a little bit off, but it says, lastly, in this email, lastly, the county council is the reason, they're talking about Conley Mill, the county council is the reason the property did not live forward. I think they mean move, she meant move forward as a park in 2021 before I took office. This ecologically valuable site is only used to mine dirt for our landfill and will continue to be that at the council's request. Now, this is a statement saying that the council has requested in 2021 that Conley Mill be nothing more than a mining pit. Couldn't be anything further from the truth.
So, Safari at the Quarry, very frustrating for those residents in that part of the county, and also maybe a little disturbing for the rest of us thinking that maybe we could be next with a new event coming soon to a home near you. But,
Yes.
But having the FOP negotiations delayed, one goes against a referendum that was just passed at the last election for the county executive to negotiate the FOP contract, but also charter deadlines are set in place. These deadlines have a little bit of maneuverability, about 15 days. We're going to find here with these videos how the county council moved it as much as they could, but we still missed these deadlines.
This is to extend the deadline on the decision to appropriate funds for a collective bargain.
Why are we having to extend it? Is there an explanation of why we're having to extend it?
I think there
For the public.
Yeah, we've seen there are some delays as far as getting any information to the council as a whole in reference to the collective bargaining agreement. Initially, I think the deadline for that information to come to the council was April 1st, but we haven't really gotten any response at all in reference to it. Our obligation was to pass it by May 1st. Of course, that's a week away, and we haven't received it yet. We haven't had a chance to review it yet. As is required, we do need to extend it to May 15th. If that in itself will give the council enough time to carefully review the document.
If you go in depth a little bit more, just to make sure that people who watch this that aren't here this morning get the opportunity to realize what's happened. In the collective bargaining personnel rules. It states, because effective and orderly operations of government are essential to the public, it is declared to be in the public interest that in the course of collective bargaining, the county and the exclusive representative shall make every reasonable effort to conclude negotiations no later than March 1st. I believe we're at April 25th now. In the resolution, under the Wacomico County Code, the county executive is required to submit to the county council by April the 1st for collective bargaining. Hasn't happened. The county council is required to indicate its intention to appropriate funds or otherwise implement a collective bargaining agreement by May the 1st. The council can't make a determination what it's going to do when it doesn't know what its options are. The county executive has not made the April 1st submission, nor notified the council of the expected submission date or the reason for the delay. It's understandable sometimes that you can't meet deadlines. It's not understandable that you can't give an explanation of why or what the postponement is or how much more time you need to get something completed.
The reality is that the county executive did not provide the county council with the proposed collective bargaining agreement by April 1st, nor did the county executive provide any information to the county council with regard to the status of the bargaining or the likely conclusion of that bargaining. The county council recognized that there was a time frame problem and that they had a May 1st deadline. In late April, the county council held a special session, and at that special session, the county council voted to extend the time period from May 1st to May 15th to make a decision on this. The county council president notified the county executive's office that the resolution would be, the collective bargaining agreement would be considered in a closed work session on May 7th, and that in order for the county council to have a closed work session on it, it had to have the collective bargaining agreement to review by no later than the previous Friday. So if it's May 7th, I think that's May 3rd. County executive sent a draft copy of the collective bargaining agreement to the county council on April 30th for the first time. The draft that was sent was not complete, and it was resent on May 2nd, which is one day after the county council theoretically is required to have approved it.
Thank you, Mr. Benson, for making the public aware of the timeline. Once again, the council received this information at the 11th hour, to your point. I understand a request was made back in September to start the negotiations, and the answer was January. That's 4 months. Why they weren't started earlier, I don't know.
So delays in the FOP charter resulted in a rushed process at the end, maybe even a little lack of transparency, a lack of communication amongst the voters and the county council themselves. But the Board of Education funding, I want you to speak to this. I think, this is at the budget process in May of 2024. And the video we included speaks about raises for certain departments, certain supporters of the current county executive. But I want you to speak to the whole process when it comes to the Board of Education funding.
Well, the real core issue here is that the Board of Education, obviously, which is a group of 7 elected officials plus the superintendent, effectively had a series of very important requests that were being brought up constantly to deal with some of the big crises we have, particularly the overcrowding of our schools, the underfunding of our staff, the vacancies that we have. And what you're going to see, unfortunately, is that when one person has that much discretionary control over education priorities, it often does not lead to good outcomes, especially if there's a particular preset agenda for that funding.
Well, in this case, the county executive, in the budget she proposed to the county council flat funded the schools, nothing above maintenance of effort. She also put in there raises for certain department heads in excess of 18 or 20%.
Correct.
Now that didn't get voted in.
Correct,
obviously.
and the interesting thing about those raises that she proposed for selected, it would seem friends and supporters, was that there was no method to it that you would typically find in terms of a class of employee. It was sort of just, I'll give the HR director a certain amount, I'll give the finance director a certain amount, and so it even looks sort of worse when you look at the arbitrary nature of those numbers.
Yeah, not very transparent at all.
No, not very transparent.
And this is not even counting the fact that in the county executive's plan, we would not be breaking ground on the Fruitland Primary School this fall.
Correct. The intention was to not build the school and then eventually to haggle over how it would be funded. But to quote the county executive in her own words, we didn't want to fund it at all.
Yeah.
I just wanted the county council to actually, when you go over the budget, the ones we just went through, to take note that we've got, let me see, in finance, 5 of the 12 are getting increases between 14 and 16% across the board. Wycomico County got around a 5% raise. However, again, in finance, you're looking at 14.2 for some, 16.8, and then when you get into human resources, again, some heavier numbers. You got 18% for the head of human resources, and then even into further. Just would like to understand how you go from 5% across the board, for the most part, to some of them at 14%, 19%, 17%. That's definitely something that needs to be looked at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got at least 20 highlights of positions where it was excess of 10 to 20% of an increase of salary. Who gets a 27% increase ever in a salary?
Well, speaking of flat funding, the volunteer fire departments in Wycomico County requested $53,000 in new funding, additional funding from last year to pay for payroll and services rendered. Again, the county executive flat funded that in her initial budget, although the county council was able to come back and find unused funds to plug in there.
Thankfully.
So let's watch that video now.
Start with the flat funding for the fire companies. The fire chiefs met. The county executive on her executive exclusive presentation states that all the departments come before with their wish list. Everybody can't get everything they want, but they try to do the best that they can. So it's my understanding, is not being a fire chief, but being associated with many of them, fire chiefs met with the county executive and requested a $53,000 increase in their budget. They were turned down, told it wasn't going to happen, and the budget reflected a flat funding for the fire companies. The chiefs went to the county executive and requested $52,000 increase this year. They were told there was no money, no additional money. If you need more money, you better get out there and barbecue more chicken.
So one thing to flat fund the volunteer fire departments, and I think it's also another when you start to really call out constitutional elected offices like the state's attorney's office. One of the things Julie did back in the spring was call Jamie Dykes out to the floor and say, hey, you weren't a part of the state of the county address. And I think Jamie does a nice job of explaining just why.
I heard at least from one councilman and a citizen that it would have been nice for the sheriff's office, as well as the state's attorney, to be a part of the state of the county, and I could not agree more. That's why I asked every department to be part of the state of the county, and unfortunately, both the sheriff's office and the state's attorney were unable to work that into their very busy and tedious schedules. The way it was insinuated was that I didn't ask them to participate, and that is simply not the case. I suggest having a conversation with the sheriff and the state's attorney expressing how passionate you are about their participation.
Just a few moments ago, I heard my position mentioned, and for the record, I want to state that the only communication that myself, and I suspect the only communication that the sheriff received regarding the state of the county was an email of March 7 from Lisa Taylor at 10:29 a.m. that was sent to all county department heads, reading the following. By clicking on the link above, by clicking on the above link, you may view last year's state of the county. Julie requested your updates should be no more than 5 to 10 minutes each, and she would like for you to share all of the updates, highlights, and good stuff your department accomplished in the past year. If you wish to share a PowerPoint, please make certain it is prepared to start immediately upon your portion of the presentation. Please let me know if you have any additional questions. As everyone here knows, my office, the sheriff's office, are constitutionally elected offices. I understand that in the realm of efficiency and economy, that sometimes we are included as all county department heads. I understand that, and I don't take offense to that. However, if there is to be a substantive request, I would anticipate that a simple phone call would suffice. This is the only communication I received. It is not my intention to unnecessarily involve myself in political disputes. I did feel under the circumstances it was necessary to set the record straight. So thank you.
So obviously, Jamie Dykes has done a wonderful job of not politicizing her office, really just focusing on justice for the community, especially young people who have been hurt or abused.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get around to this MOU signed with Eastern Shore Undercover, which is supposed to be, in Julie's mind, a way to be more transparent. But actually, the MOU is found to be anything but, maybe even not legal, according to the Sheriff Mike Lewis.
An announcement via press release from the executive's office. She announced that she had entered into an agreement, an MOU, with Eastern Shore Undercover. This executed MOU would immediately provide ESU with a county-owned police radio, affording ESU with unprecedented and unfettered civilian access to all emergency police radio transmissions. As was said earlier, I was never consulted by my own county executive on this MOU or any other MOU between Wycomico County and Eastern Shore Undercover. No one from my office was ever consulted on this MOU. I checked with members of my council, and to my knowledge, not one of you was consulted. She was determined and reckless enough to do just that. We need somebody who's going to stand up to this bully and hold her accountable. We want the citizens of Wycomico County to vote yes for Amendment A. That's what we want.
On one hand, we're talking about law enforcement, ESU, and another thing, we're politicizing law enforcement and having threats made to private citizens, whether they speak out at county council meetings or even just have had opposition to some of the policies by the county executive.
Mm-hmm.
And on 3 different occasions, maybe even more, threats have been made or even attempts at arrest have been made.
Yeah.
And I'd like to watch those videos and just see what those folks had to say.
We would be arrested, and there have been attempts to have us arrested. We go through McKell's yard and peek as far as we can, but we would certainly do more as the residents have done over the years. And talk about spite. And when Mike talked about he was almost arrested based on Julie Giordano's assertion that he was unallowed to be back there. But let me tell you this, the first time that you saw me and that I came in and spoke and laughed, I saw Julie. And I just wanted to ask her, what gave her the right to say, without knowing us, that we were entitled, self-centered, arrogant, and lived in a rundown neighborhood? And Mike came in and talked with her a little bit later. But imagine how surprised I was to get a call the next day that our county executive had contacted the Salisbury Police Department and asked them to pull the cameras because she thought one of us hit her. You talk about an abuse of power and a lack of decorum You saw it in here.
The threats of arrest, wow. At 1 a.m. the night before the event, there were dirt bikes going through the quarry. I wonder if they were threatened with arrest. I'm pretty sure they weren't.
In fact, I was threatened with arrest this weekend just for being on the access road, which is not owned by the by Wycomico County. It is owned by a private landowner. The county only has an access easement. Nevertheless, Julie Giordano, who I ran into on that access road, called the sheriff on me, who came to visit. And he determined that there was no trespass violation after he saw the deed and determined, there was not a problem there.
Heather Langford, you can speak as loud as you like, but you're incorrect about a lot of things. I called the police on him.
The end 8 seconds of the video is what shows that Ms. Langford's allegation of assaultive conduct by Mr. Goldberg was false.
So that's pretty scary stuff. I mean, the thought that you would go and speak out against your government, not touch anyone, and end up with a sheriff's office or sheriff's deputy at your house asking tough questions, or even the city police being asked to pull video to see if assault was made. These false allegations really erode the confidence and the trust in the public, not just of their elected officials, but also the police themselves. It's just really a lot of rhetoric.
Correct.
I think ultimately it really comes down to what have the people said. In these last set of videos, I'd like to watch what the people say and then really kind of close in on what Josh Hastings, the county councilman, had to say about what qualifications are needed to run the county effectively.
When you look at, we've had these same issues under Executive Culver with our HR director, with our lawyer. Now we're having it here with the Public Works director. If that's the case, if it's the council's push to get us back to that form of government, just put it on the ballot. Let's vote. Let's vote and say, okay, years ago it was voted for the executive, whether that was for good or for bad. If that's the case, let's just put it on there.
Requires some consideration of the county executive system. And I think it's time we look at that again and frankly, get rid of it.
I remember when Bob Culver took away the birthday day off for employees when he was first elected as county executive. Look at all this money, look at all this waste I've saved the taxpayers, he would champion to the media. Now, it is said that the county has trouble retaining talent. It's no wonder why. I'd be lying if that wasn't a reason. You had a former manager of the Public Works Department standing at this very podium saying he left the county because of drama. And I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a large reason of why I left the county as well.
The executive's office, and no pun intended, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. The information that was given in the meeting last week that I held, and Shane and Ms. Hurley was there, it was wrong information that was given. And I spoke with our county executive yesterday when she was driving up to Annapolis. So their homework should have been done before wrong information was given to me in that meeting.
One of the problems that you have, you county executive, when you do things secretly behind closed doors, is that people tend to believe the bad stories. The county executive comes in and really won't give us the time of day and treats us in such a way that you get the feeling that almost out of spite, she's going to axe the park and turn it into the worst possible thing.
I really didn't want to come up here and speak, but I feel like my experience might mirror some paid county employees that aren't in a position to speak. And I thought that this story should be out in the open. I am the chairman of the Sharptown Recreation and Parks Commission, and a little over a year ago, there was a park plan, and our group raised objections. I should say that I'm here speaking on my behalf, not that group's behalf. We release statements as a group. This is my personal experience. So we released a statement calling into question the openness and transparency of that park plan. The immediate aftermath was the county executive scheduled a meeting with the chairman of the commissioners of the town of Sharptown. That is basically the mayor of Sharptown, and issued an ultimatum, get rid of Mark Carroll, that's me, a volunteer, or else. They opted not to get rid of me, and they kept me in. And then our July meeting, the county executive came in and basically told us we would not receive any more representatives from the county. We were done. And I believe it was 15 years at almost every single rec meeting that we had a county representative there, a very open door, good relationship back and forth. So I just wanted to come up as someone who was basically threatened and was able to come out the other side, that there might be others who may feel the same way, who can't come up and speak because they have careers and families to worry about.
When it comes to our best ability for Wicomico County to be to have the best platform and ability to be successful going forward, I think it's really important that our county executive position, by the way, which is, I think many people might think that our county executive position is a ceremonial position like a mayor is in some towns. Of course, that's certainly not the case. This is a position that is a $200 million organization with hundreds of employees, and I do think that as a whole, I think we need to set up the right parameters to make sure that that position is as successful as possible. It's hard to transition from an individual's regular job to then becoming the head of a many $100 million organization. So I do think it's important for us to continue outside of this, but in congruence with this, I guess. It would be nice for us, I think, to have, whether that be we do switch to a county manager, if we do have, say, a director of administration or a position like that, or if the county chooses to stay with a county executive, I think we need to make sure that we tighten the parameters of which someone could qualify to become to lead the county. We could put a set of parameters in place to make sure that whomever is choosing to put their name forward, that they're the most qualified person. And then when it comes time for an election, we get the ability to choose from the most qualified, have the most qualified and experienced and ready individual in that position. Because this is not a ceremonial position. This is a key position, of which there's a learning curve. I don't care if you're going to work at McDonald's or if you're going to go work at any other job. You've got a learning curve. This is one where the learning curve is pretty darn steep.
So I think Josh Hastings really, in an eloquent way, has a way of stating that we really need someone who has that ability, that expertise to run the county, to do it.
The qualifications.
I mean, it really comes down to that. And the best way to do that is to go back to a councilmatic form of government and allow the 7 elected members, an open, transparent forum, hire an administrator who is answerable to them,
i.e. us, the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we can hold them accountable and we can speak out or even speak for some policies. So I think it's kind of an interesting dynamic of where we're at with question A. So I think people need to really consider about whether or not a county our size, with over 84% of the counties in the country not having a county executive, whether we really need one to run this county effectively.
Plus with this track record.
This track record, and even track records of the county executives preceding, it just does not show that this is effective for a county our size.
Indeed.
We want the citizens of Wicomico County to vote yes for Amendment A. That's what we want.
Thank you for watching this episode of Open Agenda. We'll be back next week with another new episode.
I know what I'm doing, man.